the interviewer said, "Oh my, you are excellent on television. And in fact, I want to have you regularly on TV." And I said, "Really?" I said, what is it? What are you thinking it is? And the interviewer said, "You're just so real." And I thought, man, I said, that's exactly right. I went on that show thinking about how I could help people and how I could really give them information that they could use to inspire action. And so I really had it in my heart, the intention of being relatable, being real. And that is the biggest lesson that I took away from that, is I was like, wow, be myself. That's where the magic is.
Well, hey there. Welcome to Media Savvy, the podcast that gives you a behind-the-scenes look at what it takes to get noticed by media and become the go-to expert that they keep coming back to. I'll be sitting down with successful writers, producers, and entrepreneurs to learn the tools and tactics they use to build their reputation and in turn boost their business. I'm your host, Taub-Dix, and I've been working with top-tier media outlets for more than 30 years, anywhere from traditional print publications to online and social platforms. And I'm sharing my nutrition guidance without gimmicks. But you don't have to be a dietitian for this podcast to speak to you. Through my one-to-one conversations, you'll learn how to build a strategy to get your name in the news and establish yourself as an authority in your field, no matter what the industry. With Media Savvy, I'm on a mission to inspire, motivate, and empower you to have the confidence and tools you need to shine in the spotlight. Are you ready? Let's get Media Savvy.
Well, hello there, and welcome to Media Savvy. Let me tell you about my guest today, who is also my dear friend and media superstar, Jackson Blatner. Dawn, better known sometimes as DJ, has been on a reality show. She always thinks outside the box. She partners with brands and baseball teams, and she just exudes fun. And I mean, who else do you know who has a specialty in talking about joy? So let me tell you about Dawn. Dawn Jackson Blatner is a registered dietitian nutritionist and certified specialist in sports dietetics. She's the author of 2 books, The Flexitarian Diet, ranked a top plant-based diet by U.S. News and World Report, and her second book is called The Superfood Swap. She's a trusted expert appearing regularly in local and national media outlets, such as The Today Show. You probably have seen her on Good Morning America, and she starred in and won, by the way, the primetime reality TV show on ABC called My Diet is Better Than Yours. Dawn worked as head dietitian for the Chicago Cubs for 10 years, and yes, she does have a World Series ring, hosted an Emmy-nominated TV show in Chicago for 3 seasons, and won the Media Excellence Award from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Dawn owns a nutrition consulting and communications business with a focus on fun and flexible superfood nutrition. She lives in Chicago, has a healthy obsession, although I think she's obsessed, with jumping rope, and you could find her at djblatner.com and on Instagram at djblatner. Welcome, Dawn.
Oh my goodness. Taub-Dix, what an exciting situation. Congratulations on this awesome podcast. I'm so excited to be here. Oh!
Well, I am so happy to have you. And something that nobody knows about Dawn is that the first time that I met her was when we were both spokespeople for the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And you know what Dawn gave me? She gave me a candle. Like, I never knew that candle making was a part of her bio. But anyway, you would have guessed it, that she gave a candle because she was the bright light in the room. And it was obvious that her energy would be contagious. So I am so happy to be friends with her. And, although I know Dawn for years and I know so much about her, I still have so many questions about her. So today we are asking her questions that you and I may be shocked to find out the answers to. So let's start with this. Dawn, tell me a little bit about your backstory. What made you become a dietitian? And what was your first media experience like?
Oh, bestie, these are riveting questions, and I'll tell you, I'm excited to answer them. But you got me off guard right when you started. You were like, I'm going to tell you something you might not know about her. I was like, girl, don't air our skeletons. But you know what? In all seriousness, I think this is so cool. Because we do know each other for so long. We know so many people, but like, do we really know the backstory of how they got media savvy, you know? So let me tell you exactly what you asked me. How did I get into nutrition? I heard on TV, by the way, media, I heard on media, do for a career what you do in your spare time. And I thought, oh my God, I didn't know what I wanted to do for a living. I was like, yeah, that makes so much sense. What do I do in my spare time? Here's what I do is I read health magazines. I hang out at a health food store, and I make tofu shepherd's pie for my drunk roommates when they come home from the bars. And so I told a counselor, I said, hey, you know, what can I do for a living if I'm making tofu shepherd's pie and hanging out in a health food store? And here's what he said, nothing. There's no such job like that. And I was like, come on, man. And he said, well, hey, I think the closest thing would be a registered dietitian. He said, I think they wear lab coats in there in the hospital, but at least it would be something with food. And I said, okay, fine, sign me up. So I then never looked back and really was excited to know there's so much to the field of nutrition. And I didn't know. I never went into this field thinking about media. I never thought about media until what happened was I was working in a hospital, a wellness institute, part of the hospital, and I saw all these other health professionals going on TV. I said, that seems cool. That seems great. And I want to do that. So here's what I did is I said, okay, I'm going to write to the PR department of my hospital and tell them I want to be on TV. And here's what they said. No, they said, no, we're not putting you on TV. And so I said, hey, could I just pitch you ideas of what I think I could do on TV? And the person at the time said, you know, you can, but I'm not going to read them because we have everybody we need to be on TV. So I said, it's fine. I think it'd be good practice for me. So I basically just kept writing ideas for TV segments, and I would send them to the PR department of the hospital. And I knew that she wasn't ever looking at them. And in fact, once in a while, she would say, hey, you know what? Thanks for sending this, but I'm not looking. And I said, hey, no big deal. You know, it's good practice for me to think about like TV ideas. So I'm just going to keep doing it. So how long would one think you email somebody and they said, no. Well, I did it for 2.5 years. I did it for 2.5 years. I was emailing TV ideas until everybody in the hospital was out one day and they needed somebody to do a TV segment on, and it was 2-part series on nutrition and the marathon. And so that is how I got my start. It was a big break after 2.5 years of no's.
Wow, you know, I actually didn't know that. And do you know that that's how I got my start in media? I was working with a hospital and I became friendly with someone in the PR department. And I don't want to make you feel badly about this, but they actually came to me and asked me if I would go on a TV show. And what's interesting about that, I mean, this is a long story I'll cover at some other point, but my first segment on TV was in a supermarket talking about tricky labels. And who knew that I wound up...
Full circle.
Yeah, who knew I wound up writing a whole book on that. And that was my first start. So interesting. Was there anything that happened during that media interview that made you feel like, oh my gosh, I want to do more of this, or this is way too stressful and I don't want to do this anymore?
Oh, here's the thing. Bottom line, I never embarrassed myself so much ever in my life doing the first TV segment, which, by the way, it was 2 parts. So the first part, they came in, I had a suit jacket on because that's how you do a professional media interview. It was in a suit jacket back in the day. So I was like, you know, I got this covered already. Nonetheless, in the interview, which, you know, is probably anywhere from 2.5 to 3 minutes long, I somehow managed to use, I'm not kidding, the word hog wild 3 times in the interview. Okay. I was humiliated. I I've never used that term before in my whole life. How did it end up 3 times in a 2-minute segment? I have no idea. So bottom line is I was super embarrassed. I thought I was going to be doing a good job. I really thought that I was prepared, and I humiliated myself. But it was 2 parts. So guess what? I brushed myself off and I said, girl, you are going to finish the second part. And you know what? I managed to finish the second part without saying hog wild, right? So there you go. It's a progress, baby. And after I was done, the interviewer said, oh my, you are excellent on television. And in fact, I want to have you regularly on TV. And I said, really? I said, what is it? What are you thinking it is? And the interviewer said, you're just so real. And I thought, man, I said, that's exactly right. I went on that show thinking about how I could help people and how I could really give them information that they could use to inspire action. And so I really had it in my heart, the intention of being relatable, being real. And that is the biggest lesson that I took away from that is I was like, wow, be myself. That's where the magic is.
Wow. Okay, we could end now. That is such an important statement. And also something, you just made me remember that when I was a little girl, I went to a Chinese restaurant and got a fortune cookie. And the fortune said, which I actually still saved somewhere, it said, be yourself. You're the only one who can be. And I love that statement.
Mic drop.
Oh,
yeah,
wow. Yeah.
I think it's a mic drop, and I really do think it plays a huge role in how I have always conducted myself in media, in public speaking, anything that I'm doing, that I really try and lock in to not just being me, but also being me and knowing that I'm here to help people. I actually got in this career to help myself first, but then I really found some interesting information. I was like, oh, I'm going to share it. And so I think the intention of being helpful and being myself is really, it comes through in what I do.
Well, I know that you have done so many interesting things in your career, but I also know that one of the most fascinating, exciting, exhilarating, and super stressful projects that you worked on was the reality TV show. And, not only were you a contestant, as I mentioned before, but you were also a winner. And that really took a lot. I mean, I felt for you while you were on the screen. So could you take us behind the scenes of what that was like? Because most of us will not ever be on a reality show. And we watch them, whether it's The Bachelor or whatever. But what is it like spending time with that entire cast? I mean, being away from home, submerged in that continuous competition besides social media to win. And, we've both done TV segments, but not anything like this. So did that experience influence you at all? I mean, would you ever do something like that again? And did you have a major takeaway that you took from that experience?
Oh, I love talking about this. Actually, I could probably talk about this for hours. There were so many pieces of that, but I will say the most important thing that I did that changed me forever was sign that contract. It had nothing to do with actually being on the show. It had nothing to do with actually winning the show. It had everything to do with my bravery in taking that pen and signing that contract. At that point, I knew I believed in me. I had to believe in me to sign that because I didn't know what I was signing up for at all. I had no idea what to expect. And so to think I signed it, I believe in me, I carry myself differently from that day forward. Now, winning the show, baby, winning. I love it. Winning. That was also a lesson. And I think the takeaway for me there was really, how did I win? I took a step back and I thought, how did I win this thing? Because there were 5 contestants all trying to get their person they were assigned healthiest. That was our role in this reality show. How do you get this person healthiest? And you know what I did is I focused on my person to get healthy. I didn't care about how the TV was portraying me. And I didn't care what my contestants that were competition were doing. I had blinders on to all of it. And all I did is I said, I'm going to give this contestant my very best. And I think that that's a great life lesson that I've taken away from it is listen, don't sit around looking all day at what your competition is doing. And guess what? Don't care how you're coming off to other people. At the end of the day, do excellent work. And that is what I did on the show. And I got rewarded for it. So, all of those lessons. And then I came back from the reality show and actually got my own TV show for 3 seasons that had nothing to do with nutrition. And that was also very, very fun. But nonetheless, that was the best experience. I would do it again in a heartbeat.
It really is such an important lesson, because I think that these days, especially on social media, we compare ourselves to other people's curated, edited, jazzed up versions of themselves. And we think that that's the way they live. That they wear the best clothes, they have the best kids, they eat the best foods, their house is the best, blah, 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 the best. And in the meantime, we're comparing it to our behind the scenes role, where we look horrible without makeup. They look perfect. Look at our clothes. It's not designer, whatever it is. But I think it's so important to really think about this. And, today I actually read this article on, I think it was an Entrepreneur magazine, where someone said that for business, you might as well listen. He's listening to his wife who's went to a nutritionist instead of listening to other entrepreneurs. And I read the article because really the crux of it is that the difference between other business people is they're trying to tell you what they could do for you. But his wife's nutritionist said, what can I do for you? Let me listen to you. And it's so much about what we do in media, because we're always told you need to speak to in the language of your audience. So if I'm going to pitch a story to Cosmopolitan magazine, I'm not going to write about the Krebs cycle. I think that it's really important that we speak in the language of the person or the audience that we're speaking to, not sciencey if they're pretty much down to earth, not too down to earth if you're talking to a group of, rocket scientists. So I think that lesson that you took away was really one that just really carries with you always. And yeah. I also think that you being yourself is something that I also want to shine a light on, because I really don't know any other dietitian that dresses up in a mermaid costume to give a presentation or dances on a stage. And obviously you do a lot of out-of-the-box things. You can't see it unless you're looking at the video, but Dawn is dancing right now. And you really know how to stand out, and you know how to make your media messages magnetic, where people actually are listening. So could you give an example of an unconventional nutrition tip or a method that you could recommend that has proven to be successful, whether you're working with brands or whether you're giving a presentation? I mean, I'd love to hear a little bit more about you going out there.
First of all, that was the most complimentary question I've ever received. Like, there are so many compliments within that question. Let me just take a moment and be grateful for that. Like, thank you for that, BTD. I do appreciate it. So, and I do think it's funny you mentioned like mermaids and walk-up songs, because that mermaid event that I did, I dressed up like a mermaid, but then talked about science, was one of the most fun things that I did. And then the walk-up song idea, I was the head dietitian for the Cubs, as you know, for 10 years. And all those baseball players had walk-up songs before they were doing their craft. So I was like, you know what? I want a walk-up song before I do my craft of public speaking. So nonetheless, though, I got to say, what is the sort of the secret is what you asked me. What do I do? What's the, what's the secret? Here's what I would say is I know that there was a clear mark for me that I was pretty miserable. I had books, I had TV segments, I have magazine articles. I kept doing all the things I thought I was supposed to do to be happy, and I wasn't. And so in 2012, I hired a coach to really help me understand, like, if all these accomplishments aren't what make you happy, like what does? How do you find joy? I don't get it. So she was hired by me to help me find joy in my job. And one of the things that I came away with that sort of in my head is that, you know what? You don't have to be prioritizing only being perfect, because that's what I did all the time. It's like, I just wanted to be perfect. And now what I do, the sort of secret is I really do prioritize fun. I am super prepared. I can practice anybody. I practice. I have notes when I don't even need notes. I really am prepared. However, I don't stop there anymore. That's how I used to be. Now I say, okay, you're prepared, girl. Now, how are you going to have fun? How are you going to have fun? And I even have a phone actually on my app. I have something that says, are you having fun? It prompts me randomly throughout the day. Are you having fun? So if I'm doing an email to a difficult person, or if I'm doing a webinar, or if I'm doing dishes, whatever it is, this pops up and it says, hey, are you having fun? And for me, I feel like that has been the secret, is that everything I do, I try to have the intention in my heart that I'm enjoying it. I'm having fun.
That's pretty awesome. So could you share with us what your walk-up song is?
It changes. Hey, based on what you said, know your audience. Public speaking,
Awesome.
number one is know your audience. So I know if I'm like talking to a room full of real estate agents, for example, I might try and find something where it's like something with home in the, in the lyrics. Or if I'm talking to a bunch of beauty professionals in the audience, I'm like, okay, I'm going to hair, skin and nails, or like there's this song that comes on that I'll do. So I tend to do songs that I like, but then also pair them with my audience.
I love that. You see, that's perfect. It's perfect. And isn't it so good when we actually practice what we preach? I love that too.
Truth.
Well, you have also partnered with so many global brands, and we're not going to mention any of their names, but you know that when you work with brands, that is more lucrative work. That is, for me, the bread and butter of what I do is working with brands. But it's not as easy as it used to be to work with brands. I mean, it used to be so easy. I used to just call up a magazine and say, hey, I'm working with this company. I think you'll love them too. And their name got in the news. Getting a brand's name in the news is not as easy as it was before. And of course, now we need to disclose who we're working with, which so many influencers, in air quotes, just do not do. So when it comes to working with a brand, how do you ensure that the collaboration aligns with your philosophy or your own health and nutrition goals or your own personal values? And, what is key to think about before entering a partnership with a brand that really is important besides the money that you make?
What a great question. I mean, thank you for asking it, because it even gets people listening thinking about it. What I consider this is an authentic brand partnership. So that's what I call it. How do you know you're in an authentic brand partnership? And there's two things that I do. The first one is this a product that I actually use? Or if maybe not, is this a product that I want my family to use? I learned very early on, if I use any other questions to decide what brand I'm working with, it does not align with me in my heart. I used to use a different question. I used to use a question of, is this better than what most people do in the world? Am I improving their nutrition based on what they're doing? And that wasn't aspirational enough for me on the types of brands I want to work with. Am I putting it in my body? Am I giving it to my family? That's huge. That's an authentic brand match for me. The second thing, so the first one is, am I using the product? Is my family using the product? Second one is, are they hiring me in my best strengths? Is the scope of work that they are asking me to do truly what I am great at? Because oftentimes it isn't. Oftentimes the brand will say, oh, we want you to do this. And I say, oh gosh, that's like not my expertise. That's not where I shine. I need to tell them I can do something else for them. And I'll give you a couple of examples here. So this isn't technically brand work, but I mean, it was a big situation. So I was asked to speak on a very large stage about ethics. And I thought to myself, man, do I want to be on that stage? Man, do I want to do this public speaking event? It would be huge for me, but I cannot. This is not an authentic brand match. I'm not known for talking about ethics. I follow ethics. I have ethics. I think they're very important, but do I feel like that is where I shine the most? And so I said, hey, man, I would love to do this speaking engagement. Here are two topics that I think would rock your audience. I think your audience would love these. And guess what? They picked one of my two, and I was able to shine bright authentically because I was giving them something the audience needed, but also was in my wheelhouse. The other very recent example is with a brand. Oh, this is a good one too. So they said, hey, we want to hire you to do a video for us. And here's an example of the video we want you to do. So I watched the example of the video and I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot do this. It is super boring. It is super sciencey. I'm literally snoozing on this. So I went back to the brand and I emailed them and I said, oh my gosh, I absolutely would love to do this video. I will not be able to do it in this style, but if you want something that's a little more approachable, lighthearted, and fun, I would really do a great job with that. And so if you're looking for a different kind of style, I'm your girl. And so sure enough, they were like, yeah, that's not relatable, fun. That sounds like a really great idea. We'd like to hire you for that type of video. And so I'm very honest with being a brand match of, is this my strongest way I can be? Because then I'm going to do better work for the brand if I'm doing what I'm known for, what my strengths are.
I just want to sort of restate in my own words what you just said, because I think that it is so super important. And I guess the overarching question is the brand hiring me? And it's not just about me, my science knowledge, my years of experience. It's about me, my personality. Does it mesh with their product? Does it mesh with their philosophy? Does it mesh with their audience? And who are they trying to reach? And are you the best person to reach that audience? And I think that is fantastic. And I know I agree 100%, because when I do work with a brand, they usually send me product and I'm always making all these different recipes for myself, for my kids. If I didn't feed it to myself and my family, then I wouldn't work with them. And it just, because I think that another word that you used early on is authenticity, or something like authenticity. And I think that if you're not authentic, people will know. They'll see right through you. They'll know that you're just like, trying to just give them a line without really feeling it in your heart. And I think that brands hire us because they know that we are sincere about what our messages are conveying.
Oh, yeah. So like you said, I call it an authentic brand partnership. That is what I've named it. And if it's not a match for me, I actually have had many situations where I'm like, this isn't a match for me. So I never say no. You know what I say? I say, I've got the perfect person for you. And I have given many of my friends referrals. Like if it is something with Disney and young kids, I'm giving it to a dietitian that has some Disney experience and some young kid experience. Or if it's something, with sweeteners that I might not personally use, but I know dietitians who personally use them, I pass that along. So I'm really big on that. If you decide it's not an authentic brand partnership, take a step back and who can you pass it forward to? It's like the world is full of abundance. And so really having the abundance mindset of passing on something that isn't a match for you to somebody, I think it's karma. It will come back to you tenfold, baby. So pay it forward when you can.
That is really true. Years and years ago, I remember that I taught a course. It was like a full day workshop called Mind Your Own Business. And it was all about how to start a private practice and maintain that practice going. And I remember so many dietitians came to me and they said, why would you want to talk about this it's your competition? Like, why do you want to teach people what you do? But as you say, there's plenty of room for all of us out there. There's plenty of brands out there, plenty of people you could work with. But if you're good, they will find you. When talking about working with brands, I know that you and I, who have been in media for so many years, we employ certain tactics that we know work. And I know that you and I share the same favorite tactic, that when you get asked a question that is a difficult question and you want to not answer it, or when you know that, let's say they say, okay, 1 more minute, and you haven't even gotten out your brand's message yet, you have to do something. You have to bridge or pivot. So could you explain what a bridge or a pivot is? Because I love this and I know you do too.
Oh my. Okay. If we're talking about media savvy, the 3 things I remember learning in my 9 years of formal media training: bridging, hooking, and flagging. I got to tell you, if you know bridging, hooking, and flagging, you know everything that there is to know about dominating media. And so, I'll go through each one of them actually pretty quick. Okay. So let's talk about flagging first. The most important thing you can know about flagging is that I just flagged.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. It's like having, before you say anything, hey, listen, this is the most important thing I could tell you. The most important thing is flagging and say, pay attention to this. I know you might be sleeping, but I'm just going to tell you the best thing ever. So flagging I use it in public speaking. I use it in my everyday communication when I feel like I'm losing people. I think flagging is everything. Hooking is, well, that is a great question, but I have an even better question for you. And people are like, what's the better question? I've hooked them into caring about what I'm going to say next. So hooking is beautiful. I remember hooking my first time on CNN. I was like, I'm going to practice hooking right now. And so I did something and I was like, I love hooking as much as flagging. But the true business of media is bridging, to your question. And bridging is whatever somebody's asking you, you can quickly touch on it, but then you bridge to what you actually need to talk about. And so that skill set has allowed me to sit in any interview and say anything I want because I answer their question and then I quickly add to it what I need to say because it's a business deal, right? The people in media need somebody to give you information and you have information that you want to give to them. It's a business deal. So I am sitting there and I'm going to bridge to the things I want to bridge to. And I got to tell you, I feel so much confidence knowing how to do that.
I want to get back to the confidence thing, but in terms of bridging, if you don't know what a bridge is and you want to see what it is in real life, then watch political shows. Because in those shows now, every time I see it, whether it's the Saturday morning shows or the evening news, it's like, well, I can't tell you that, but what I can tell you is this. Come on. Why don't you tell us what we're asking? But anyway, they're very good at bridging. They're the best at bridging. But talk about confidence. Now, I know that for myself, I've been doing this for more than 30 years. And when I tell people that sometimes before a presentation or before a satellite media tour or something like that, that I feel jittery or nervous, they are shocked because it's, come on, you do this all the time. Even my husband is like, oh, come on, what are you nervous about? But I still get nervous and I still lack confidence, even though it usually turns out okay. So what do you do to gain confidence?
Okay. Many things. So the first one is I have sort of rituals that I do, that I make sure that I have meditated. I make sure that I've had, a protein rich, nourishing meal. I make sure that I'm hydrated. So I feel like in my head, I'm like, okay, my physical body is taken care of. I think that's great. Then I really do feel that the one major thing, this is actually, in media, what is the thing that you wish you knew always? And it's all about bravery and confidence, like we're talking about, is I say this to myself, and it is the thing that helps me so much. I say, Dawn, it's not about you. You have great information to share. It's all about your audience. Be brave and go share information you know will help them. And when I say bravery and confidence comes from a mindset of service. Bravery and confidence comes from a mindset of service. That when I believe that I am serving other people, that I have something that will really help them, like in my heart, I'm like, oh my gosh, this will really help you. I am excited. I change that sort of nervousness into excitement that I'm going to share with them. I get out of my own ego. I get out of my own head. It's not about you. And that really, really, it changes everything for me.
That's awesome. Well, you're right. It is excitement. Even though it is nervousness, it is excitement. I sometimes I just can't even tell what it is. If I'm like shaking out of joy or if I'm shaking out of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to blow this. But it doesn't really matter if it turns out okay in the long run. But speaking of joy, I know that joy is your unique specialty. And joy is such a tiny little word, but it speaks volumes, especially when you talk about it as it relates to diet and mental health and life itself. So how do you help your audiences find joy? And why do you believe that joy is such an important component of wellness that you need to, I know you're even doing research on this, but that you need to help them understand and feel?
It's a very personal topic to me. I really never set out to start talking about joy in any way. It was something I was doing personally because I was having no joy in my job. So I was getting coached around how to have more joy. And so all of a sudden, though, as I was seeing clients, as I was getting hired, it was hard not to accidentally sort of talk about this stuff and use it. And so I just accidentally started talking more about being grateful, being present, adding play. And as I was doing that to like clients, for example, I was like, oh my gosh, this joy, it like seems to apply everywhere. That no longer is it just about, judgment and guilt and shame and shoulding. It's like, I'm telling them, let's have a little more play in this. Let's have a little more gratitude in this. Let's just be present and do what we can. And it's like, oh my gosh, all these joy principles are working with everybody. And I've sort of sleuthed out for myself. Why am I so into this? Like, why do I go around talking about this? Who cares? What am I doing? Here's what it is. It's nutrition, which is, a passion of mine, and joy both have a common outcome. And that is feeling good. Is that I'm not practicing joy to be a joyful person. That's not why I do it. I practice these principles because they make me feel good. I eat my fruits and vegetables and drink my water and do my exercise and go to sleep on time and all that stuff. Not because I want to be the most disciplined person that you know, but it's because I want to feel good. And so joy for me is another route to the ultimate goal of feeling good.
Wow. I love that. I know that we're going to hear lots more about that for you, but it's funny you mentioned like just feeling good. I always said that if I was a toy, the toy that I would be is a teeter-totter. A teeter-totter, it like goes to one side, you push it, it goes to the other side, but it always comes back to the middle. Like I am such a middle of the road person. I am really not like living in the extremes. And for some people that may be like, what? You're not going to jump out of a plane? No. I'm not going to jump out of a plane. But I like living in the middle. And I find that I am the most joyful when I feel like things in my life are kind of in harmony. And, just personally, but even professionally, if I'm working too much, if I'm working too little, I kind of need to bring myself back to the middle. But anyway, story for another time. So we know that having a strong media presence is critical when it comes to delivering a message. In fact, that's kind of the reason why I even started this podcast, is because I feel like there are so many people out there that are misleading people with messages. And even though my training is in nutrition, this is not a nutrition podcast because dietitians know what to talk about. People know what to talk about when it comes to their field. I'm not talking about nutrition. I'm talking about how to get messages out, how to make messages magnetic. So I've seen you do things like dance, sing, jump rope, eat. You're having fun while you're also giving your messages. So how do you keep ideas fresh in your mind to captivate your audience? And what gives you inspiration? And another thing that I know about you, I don't know if you'll remember this, and nobody else knows this about you. Don't get nervous. But I remember that we were once on a Zoom call and we were talking about something. You said, well, I have to put my think cap on. And you put your hat on because you said it helps you think. So maybe you've done that in the past to get your own inspiration or to be your muse. But what do you do these days for inspiration?
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. I still do. When I need to focus, I put a baseball hat on because something about like not having my thoughts soaring all over the place and swirling around and sort of like a little bit of, the, sides of your eyes are sort of tucked in a baseball cap. It really helps me focus. That's so funny you remember that. I still do that to this day. I think what's so interesting about this and, making, your message magnetic as you talk about and like, where do you get your inspiration? I do think that having something pop up on your phone regularly that says, are you having fun? 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 It basically retrains my mind like automatically. As I'm doing things, I'm thinking, is this fun? Am I having fun? If I'm not having fun, I'm pretty sure nobody else is going to be having fun. So, as I'm creating things, my brain has been retrained to think like that. So I think that's the first step is that, having the insight that matters, or that I care about that as I'm doing things. And then I get a lot of my inspiration from one, having my physical body well. Like I really know that I am not working at my creativity like potential if I'm not well rested, I didn't exercise, I didn't eat right. Like I really do believe in my physical body being top notch so that I can be super creative. And then I also think as I reflect, inputs. I like to make sure that I'm having inputs, new people, new places, new things, new experiences. If I'm sitting in my same office over and over and over, how am I going to have new ideas? I need to have fresh inputs. And so I'm always trying to make sure that I push myself to do things, see things, meet people. And because you never know what's going to happen, and most of my creative ideas, honestly, are not at my desk. They're mostly when I'm thinking about a project in my bed, meditating, on a walk, in the shower, so I do know that, it's more about flow than force for me.
Yeah, it's funny because I think about that too, where I get inspired as opposed to who is inspiring me or what. It's like where I get inspired. And most often that is like in the middle of the night. And when I was writing a column for Newsday, I remember it was my first writing job, that I kept a pen and a pad by my bedside. And I used to wake up in the middle of the night in the dark and write a story. And I remember that once I actually forgot to turn the page because I had done that already, went to sleep, woke up again. And then I started writing and I wound up writing 2 pages on top of each other and I couldn't read it. But yeah, I think that is so true that you never know who is inspiring you. Like when I was seeing a lot of private patients, they would inspire me for what I was writing about or reading about, or they would tell me what to write about. So I just think now, believe it or not, even my kids inspire me a lot. And even my grandkids, because they ask me things and it makes me think, well, if they're asking me, so many other people are probably looking for the same information. So I love that inspiration could be anywhere.
Yeah. And I got to say, that's a really a beautiful thing you just said is like, how do you create content that matters? It's like, oh, you have real people who are asking this to you. And so I have a little list. I have many, many, many lists on my phone of things. But one of my lists is, questions people ask to inspire content. And so I think that's a real keeper, BTD. I think that's a genius thing.
Yeah, that's so funny. And I think another good tip for everybody who's listening is that when I go to write a story, that sometimes I don't really know what the story is going to be about, but I have a super great title. So I have a document that just says story ideas, even though lots of times it's just a title. But also when you're looking to write a story or you're getting inspiration, don't worry about writing it down with perfect grammar or spelling or punctuation. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Just like to write the crappiest stuff down that seems like a good idea, because even if it's just part of a sentence that you'll wind up using, it really is important to hit it while it's hot.
Oh, I love that. If you wait, here's the saying that I do. Inspiration happens while you're doing the work. So it's not going to be, thinking about trying to make the perfect sentence and then writing it. It's like, you've got to be in it, in the sloppy, messy, ugly stuff. And then it's like, inspiration just hit me while I was doing the work. Yes.
Exactly. So let me ask you, what do you see as being one of those like reaching for the stars in your future? Do you have something that you'd really like to reach for that you haven't done yet? Or do you just want to keep doing the same thing in different ways?
Okay, so here is the truth. The truth is I'm just not a goal setter. And the reason why is very clear to me, because I never in a million years would have set goals for myself of doing things like head dietitian of the Chicago Cubs, winning a reality show, writing books, being on Today's Show, being on Good Morning America. Are you serious? Like, I would never have dreamed up any of that stuff. The universe seems to have a much bigger and better plan for me than I could even for myself. So I'm very much, instead of a goal setter of thinking about I'm a daily action person. And so instead of goals, I say every day, this is my rule. Wake up, do the work in front of you with enthusiasm, and stay open to any opportunities that have a hint of joy to them. Because for me, when something seems enjoyable or meaningful, so if you don't love the word joy, if something is meaningful to you, that's a path to joy. But if something seems joyful or meaningful to me, that is a clue that it is the right direction for me. So that daily action, just be, enthusiastic about the work you're doing, but also stay open to things like, oh my gosh, that sounds fun. Oh, maybe I want to try that. Oh, that's interesting. What's she up to? Like, oh, maybe I need to look into that word or whatever, so I really think that's where the magic's at. For me, it's more flow.
Oh, I didn't know that about you because I am that way too. I don't like goals. My goals are like written in pencil. And my pencil has a big eraser. Yep. Because the way that I have always felt in my career, and same way, I never knew I wanted to do, I never would have dreamed. I've already achieved everything I wanted to achieve. So whatever happens now is just like icing on a cake, to use a food analogy.
Yeah, exactly. Good job.
But I think that what I love is having a road that you want to take, setting off on the road. And if there happens to be an interesting detour, I mean, what the heck? Why not try to go that way too? Because you never know what's at that road. And my mother always had this expression, which I know is not her expression, but she always used it, is when a door closes, a window opens. So even if you do have goals set and you're on the way and you're so disappointed because something happened or threw you off track, just take a different road. I'm sure there's a detour somewhere, or open up a window and you'll find something else. So don't give up. I love that.
I agree. I love the ode to your mama too. Good,
oh my
good
gosh,
people, good people. But the big thing for me is the idea that it's redirection, right? So it's not like rejection, So a lot of times it's like, wait, why isn't this working? Why are you rejecting me? It's like rejection is protection. Rejection is redirection. It's like you weren't supposed to do that. And so if I don't get invited to things or if something doesn't work out, I think, whoa, good. Thanks for saving me. Rejection is protection from me against that. Or, oh gosh, how come that didn't work out? How come they didn't call me? It's like, oh, rejection is redirection. Think about, there's probably somewhere else to put your mind. So yeah, that really comforts me.
I once submitted a tape to someone who was looking for a media thing. This is so long ago, but you just made me think about this. And I got back a really nice letter saying, no, thank you. And, I have been lucky in my career to not really have a lot of rejections. So I just had to call them up and say, why? What happened with that? So, yes. What didn't you like about me? I thought it was pretty decent. And she said, to be honest, I know that this is I'm not really supposed to tell you this, but we were kind of looking for someone that was blonde, had a Midwest accent, and I wish I knew you then.
I was like, me!
I would have pointed to you. I was like, oh, you're talking about Dawn. But I felt so much better after making that call because I couldn't imagine what I did wrong. I thought it was perfect for them, but they were looking for a different look. So that really made me feel a lot better. So, Dawn, I love you. And I have two more questions to ask you that I like to ask all of my guests. And I think that this really helps inspire others. So looking back on your journey in the media landscape, what is one piece of advice that you wish you received when you first started? And my other question is, can you provide just one top tip, even though I know you've given a million today, that listeners may want to know if they want to work with media or if they're already media savvy to help them continue working with media?
Okay. Yeah. Great. So the first one I already sort of gave you, but it's so worth repeating. So what do I wish I learned earlier in my career, right? And that's really that bravery, confidence piece. I could have saved myself so much anxiety and so much panic if I would have known that when I go to do something, I could just say to myself, girl, it's not about you. You are there to serve and give good information. It's about your audience. And that, I got to tell you, that really, it sets me free. I become so brave. I do such brave things because I get out of my own way when I think about that. So I learned that, but I didn't learn it early enough. I feel like it's such a good takeaway. And then, another lesson that I learned early on that I keep reminding myself of is the idea of being yourself. Is that, whether you are already media savvy or you're trying to be media savvy, I think that is like overlooked because people are always trying to do such a good job. I mean, I even see friends in TV, it's like, oh, are you really being yourself here? Do you know how much better your segment could be if you added you? If you added you and you weren't just like so prim and proper and, being prepared is huge, but also, that adding you are the secret sauce, you are the magic.
Exactly. And, one time I had given a presentation and the presentation was for this big audience of bankers, and they were really, it was a tough audience. Let me just say this. And at the end, we had a Q&A, and the person who hired me afterwards said, I got to tell you, your speech was pretty good, but you really shine in Q&As. And I think that your authenticity information is really applying to that, because that's when I could be myself. I have no idea what they're going to ask me, so I'm only drawing from inside when I'm giving them the answers as opposed to a written script. So really important to just be yourself. I agree. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us before I let you go? And I do not want to let you go.
I know, I could talk to you forever. When I reflect on your podcast, right, it's media savvy. It made me think about like, what is media really? It's media is a place where people get educated, they get entertained, they get inspired. And so when I think about, okay, entertaining, informing, inspiring, I want to make sure I'm doing all those things when I'm interacting in the media. But most importantly, I want to make sure they get my message and are inspired to act. I really think this sort of call to action is really big for me. And so it's, as you think about how you navigate media for everybody's, their own self, like, if that's an important thing, I really do believe that, looking one last time at anything I'm going to say, I think to myself, did I educate someone? Did I entertain someone? And did I inspire them to act?
That is great. Well, thank you so much. So I know where to find you. But where should our listeners find you?
Yeah,
where would you like them to go?
Let's have a cup of coffee. You know what? My main hub is my website, and that's djblatner.com. That's where you could get all my past blogs. You can get my WOW newsletter. You can get all my social links there. And that's really my home base.
Okay, great. And I will be writing show notes. If you know me, I love to take notes. My friends fault me for taking too many notes, but I love to take notes. So I will put show notes. I'll put Dawn's information in the show notes and some links where you could find her. And in the meantime, I just want to say thank you so much, Dawn. And that is a wrap for today's episode of Media Savvy. A big thanks to DJ Blatner for schmoozing with us while talking about her media journey. And if you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did, it would mean so much to me if you'd subscribe to this show, and please write a review. And I would love it if you tell your friends about Media Savvy. So remember, it's not just about getting your name out there. It's also about connecting with your audience in meaningful ways. So be sure to tune in next time. And until then, follow at BTD Media on Instagram for insider tips and tricks. And don't be shy. Throw me a message. If you have any questions, just DM me. And by the way, you are looking very media savvy today. I'm Bonnie, saying goodbye for now, and see you in the spotlight.
Love you. Oh my gosh.